All right. Looks like the agenda. Do we have anything? I thought we had some standing items. I guess not really. All right. Yeah. The first thing on the agenda, someone put on here, what type of validation should we do prior to releasing a life cycle, and what can we automate? Someone wants to kick us off.
That was me, and I apologize in advance for my audio because I cannot find my headphones, so I'm speaking through the computer
Sounds great.
itself. Okay.
Sounds good on our end.
So I actually threw this bullet up on the agenda when we were in the middle of doing the validation for the last release, which was actually quite painful because we were making changes to the command package without very many automated tests. So I just wanted to kind of start the conversation for what we would like it to look like, and we can kind of work toward that. That's all.
Can I ask a question before? Do we have a schedule for the next release? I mean, when do we plan to ship it? And like specific date and all of that?
I don't think we have a date. I know Emily mentioned it in release yesterday during the working group meeting that we haven't really sussed out what exactly is going to be in this next release. So I think it's going to be some time before the next release, before the next major release at least. I'm sure minor releases can go out with any bugs that we find that are worthy of creating one. But I have not heard a date, so unless anyone has anything else.
Yeah, basically what Jesse said is right in line with what I was thinking, because we typically do the feature-based releases around what ends up in the finalized API. But just as like a gut check, I think it'd be nice if we could get something out in like 2 months-ish, because I feel like when we start going any longer than that, it's maybe like too long of a cycle time. And we can use that as a sanity check for, because the APIs aren't finalized yet, as a sanity check for how much stuff we want to try to cram into these APIs, or whether we want to do both platform and build pack, which we have historically been doing them both at the same time. But if we thought that it would take too long to do both 06 APIs and we were getting near the point where we've been uncomfortable because we were waiting too long for a release, then we could decide to do just platform or just build pack. But it's less of a target date rather than a date gut check. We'll start feeling anxious if we hit that date and we aren't near release.
Actually, I thought it might be useful to have like a date that we can move it, but at least so. Going back to what Natalie, the question Natalie brought is, I think that we need to have like a date and then to think, okay, what can we do during this time? I mean, otherwise we can do so much, I mean, in a year, and then, okay, let's put so many things in our automation or create more acceptance tests, but we won't be able to make it to the next release. So maybe we can think about like a date, and then it's okay if we'll move it. But I don't know, this is what I think based on what we had like in the last 2 releases that were like in the last week, we were like, okay, what we need to cut a release.
That makes sense. I've always sort of thought about release planning as either feature-based or time-based, right? So you're either like, I want to ship on this date and I'll ship whatever's done at that time, or I want to ship this set of features and we're going to ship it as soon as we have them done. and that if you do both, it sort of creates unfair pressures, right? Because we're not great at predicting exactly when we can get it done, but it sounds like we've sort of been falling into that bucket anyways, and maybe setting a date earlier would help us at least.
Yeah, I think that's
Be
true,
more
especially
realistic.
for figuring out how to test like some of the stuff that Natalie's talking about now, like kind of working backward into figuring out what we can accomplish and how to beef up our testing and automation and giving that time to run through towards the end and like have a goal in sight, you know. So I don't know. So you said roughly 2 months earlier, Emily. What does everyone feel about like March 1st? Is that like, I don't know what, I guess I should make sure that's like an actual date that's not a weekend or something first.
Are you committed now? We're gonna ship it on a.
That's a Monday. I don't know if we ship on Mondays.
Monday's actually kind of perfect, I think.
Okay.
Better than Friday, at least.
Anyone have any objections to like a March 1st, like lofty goal of shipping whatever is done?
The only thing I want to add to that, just in our minds when we think, because like I've suffered from this problem, like March 1st should actually mean all pull requests are like submitted, you know, at least a week prior, so we have time to do the feedback and
yes.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think that's true for the lifecycle bits itself. I think maybe that also gives us time to like shore up some automation during that week. Like if we do run into issues, like I think I would clarify, at least for me, it would make sense for those to be like features and bugs for lifecycle itself, not the automation around it. Like, because I think there's still plenty of room for us to like in that last week to like shore up any like, you know, as we test those things that have been submitted and they fail or something, we have plenty of time to like, and we don't have to bump the release for that sort of work maybe. But.
Not plenty, but yeah, we'll have time.
So Natalie, we didn't really answer like what can we do different other than like timeline? Is that what you're looking for, or did you want to discuss like more technical aspects?
I mean, I had some like things in mind, right, for what would be awesome. Like what we have now is we have acceptance tests for the detector and the analyzer. We have the pack acceptance tests, which exercise basic lifecycle functionality. And then as a one-off, but maybe it's something we could continue for the last release, we had our Tecton tasks that, again, we're doing very basic builds, but, you know, we kind of toggled to fit our needs for the particular feature that we were testing. So, you know, those are all helpful and they all served a need. But like if we wanted to invest in making any of those better, like what should we prioritize?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Personally, I think that adding more acceptance tests to lifecycle is pretty necessary. I felt that creating new feature, we were like, it was a problem that we were not able to run some tests and see that we didn't break anything. So I think we should prioritize at least, Natalie, we talked about it yesterday, maybe at least one like phase per release. So maybe start with the creator or like something else that you think is more important. But
creator is the one that basically does all the rest of them.
Exactly. I mean, but
that's the hardest one.
That's right, but it will help us a lot. I don't know. I mean, just an idea. Yeah.
I'm inclined to do sort of like breadth rather than depth first for these. Like if we could just even get one test for every phase, one happy path test, then we'd at least have a structure where if we're adding new features and stuff, it'd be easier to insert there. I feel like that would help a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, not having a lot of acceptance tests in some of the areas just means that you're just kind of flying blind at a certain point. So. All right, well, maybe we'll add that to the milestone. So I think we'll pick one, at least one. The Tecton I thought was an interesting one as well, because that's how, platforms that are not pack interact with lifecycle, and that's probably where I would think we're most likely to break things right now. Because there's plenty of pack acceptance tests before we ship, generally speaking, at least like some of it, at least the normal cases. So I kind of feel like, I wonder if it makes sense to have some sort of, Kubernetes like YAML, like, acceptance test where it doesn't have to be Tecton, but it needs to be like a pod that like runs these in different containers, potentially as different users, maybe even using the lifecycle created scratch images, or maybe not, just, trying to figure out, like, because I think that's sort of where the edges are weird, is like what user it runs as, and like some of that's very Kubernetes specific, but that's really our target platform for lifecycle, I would think.
I agree with that. I feel like between pack and Tecton, I know there's many different platforms, but those are the two main flavors, like your Kubernetes flavored platform and your Docker flavored platform, and everything is basically a variation on that. I think these tests would be good for not introducing regressions. They're probably not a great way to test the features of new APIs, because then all of a sudden we'd basically be upgrading every platform for the new APIs, and we already have too much work to do. But I wonder if, like, when we cut a release branch, maybe we want some automated, that's when we can start doing some of these automated tests to ensure we don't have any regressions against Pack or Tecton. I'm a little bit worried about running them on every single PR just because they're going to be slow and maybe expensive from an infrastructure perspective, depending.
About Tecton, do we know if it has any Windows support now? I mean, maybe I should know this, but
no,
it doesn't.
I don't think so.
Kubernetes has been nice to suss out some Windows requirements around file permissions that weren't exposed by Docker. Docker does some magic to fix file permissions that that Kubernetes doesn't. But yeah, I don't know. I could definitely look into see what what the Tecton story is with Windows, if that would be useful.
Yeah.
And if we just know for sure that it doesn't work and it's not going to work, that's fine too.
Tecton regressions seem like a decent target, but I think, the just using Kubernetes instead of Docker, I think, is my main concern there, just because like you said, the magic that Docker does for you just doesn't exist in Kubernetes, and you have to think about things like security context and how you run them and what happens if you don't run them, and building up some of those acceptance tests at some point would be beneficial to this project, I think.
Yeah, I wonder if it would also uncover some bugs for other non-Docker hosts to yeah.
We might want to reach out to Javier, because I know he's been investing time into Tecton, and he's also been working to provision different environments that maybe we can leverage so that the setup isn't as onerous.
By the way, I just talked to him just before the meeting, so if you want him, he can join us. I can ping him. So, do you think it's, or maybe we can talk to him offline?
Yeah, I don't want to without the context, like I don't want to bring him in
Yeah.
and be like, yeah, do you have an environment? And he'll just be like, I don't know.
No, I agree. I just brought this up because I talked to him just before the meeting.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
in an
keeping the
ideal
environment-
world, he's created a set of tectonic acceptance tests, and then we can just have a job that clowns them and runs them while setting 1 or 2 environment variables to configure the life cycle.
All right, so we went a little bit out of order. I see someone added the standing items that I missed. Does anyone want to give any status updates?
I've been sort of having a weird week, and I think I'm going to be out this afternoon because my kitty is not doing well, and he's more important than the life cycle to me.
I hope that works out.
I've been working a little bit on the Windows SID RFC, and working on it off and on, but I think I'll be able to wrap it up today. That's my hope.
That'd be cool to see.
I don't have a lot of share since the really long vacation that passed very fast, but I worked on the migration guide for Buildpack API 04 to 05, and I put a PR yesterday in the docs repository. So I would love to get some feedback.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I don't think I saw that, so I'll try to go hunt that down.
Thank you.
I haven't upgraded any build packs, so I'll be curious to see what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, I don't have anything really. It's been too long to remember, even if I did. So, all right. The next thing on our list is the needs discussion. Let me see if I can open up figure out the screen share. It's this one.
Nally, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, it was very similar.
Okay.
Coming back from
Cool.
vacation, like Rip Van Winkle.
Yeah, I saw you nod your head. I wasn't ignoring you. Sorry. I saw you were like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's nothing. But sorry, I should have called you.
No, that's fine. I
guess we've actually discussed both of these last time.
We did, yeah. Is there anything?
But they've
we
had
already
discussion.
sort of
Now they need resolution.
Yeah, so I guess is it the M1s? They now have like x86 support on Docker or something right now through QEMU or whatever it is. I don't know how to say it. I only know how to spell it. But I know that doesn't technically mean support ARM, but I think Docker is now runnable on M1s.
Yeah, I feel like there's 2 big parts to this. One is just like building and publishing lifecycle binaries that can run on ARM. But the other one is making sure we're doing a sane build so that, we're not running build packs in ARM and exporting on AMD run image, stuff like that. That would just create broken images.
Yeah, I guess the first part's fairly easy to tackle, I think. But if it ends up producing unrunnable images, then that's not good. But I think if we assume builders are running x86 now, then that would be a good first step, right? So is that something we want to put as a milestone to like compile these for ARM? Like, do we even have the capability to test these on ARM right now, I guess?
Good question. I don't really know the answer to that. Whether
Definitely
there's
don't.
like an option in actions that would let us test it, right?
Yeah, because short of that, I think you'd either have to have, for CI stuff, you'd have to like spin up EC2 or something, right? They're one of the only ones I know that have like ARM.
Yeah, actually, I thought Docker provided sort of like a way to fake the architecture so that you could develop ARM on x86 Linux machine. So maybe it's
Right.
actually not a huge problem.
Yeah, it does that like bin format, bin bin fmt binary translation. I don't know if that's a feature of Docker desktop only or of
Hmm.
any Docker though.
Does it allow you just to build them, or can you run them as well?
Both, and it's all transparent, so you don't even really know that it's doing it. You could just if you're just doing Docker CLI, you just do a Docker pull of an ARM image. You put it as your from image or whatever, and then you run it, and then it all just magically looks like it's running, even though it's using all ARM images under the hood. But I feel like that implicit behavior is dangerous for anything that we try to do, because it's just not very obvious that it's using ARM. I mean, I think it, in some ways, it could probably combine, perhaps accidentally, ARM and x86 images at the same time. So I think all this, like being super explicit about it, is a good idea. But to the CI question, it would be kind of cool if the runners already could do that ARM translation, and then we wouldn't have to get into a whole big mess of, especially if we start to go into Kubernetes based integration tests, it kind of explodes our matrix of runners.
What do we think the priority on this is? Do we think we should be doing that in whatever 011 or whatever we're going to call this next release?
No, I don't think so. I think it's something that will eventually be very important, but I wouldn't try to like put it in front of other very important things, like even like stack packs, right? That we've been talking about for longer.
Yeah.
But I think shortly, like this is sort of heating up in levels of interest and excitement in the community. So
Definitely.
I wouldn't stick it in front of other things that we've been saying for a long time are high priorities, but I think the sooner we could do it, the better. But that's more from like a proactively generating excitement perspective. I feel like it's something that would get users excited, but I don't think it's more important than solving existing big problems like installing OS packages. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, that jives with what I think as well. Because we're already seeing support internally for the idea of stack packs. People are starting to build stuff that doesn't have the OS packages they need. We're starting to see some more interest in being able to extend that way. So I do think that ARM is behind that for sure for us. And we're already working on this one, right? That's what you're working on, Micah? The SID stuff?
Yeah, it's mainly just been going slow to just make sure that the design isn't wrong.
Should I remove the needs discussion tag here?
I think that's probably fair, since the discussion will move over to the RFC here pretty shortly. Yeah, I think the everything that I had kind of hoped would be true is true. That we can do it. You can set the SIDs on Linux or Windows, and you don't need to make the Windows syscalls to do it. So
Gotcha.
it's all just doing the work now, or doing the RFC, finishing that.
Nice. Yeah, that's kind of how I want to treat ARM. I think I'd like to get some experimentation of like what that looks like. Like I think it's fine for if anyone who's interested to start looking at GitHub Actions or figuring out how the Docker multi-arch stuff works and how transparent it really is, because I think we're going to probably be running, like you said, into that. Like as soon as someone publishes a builder image that's multi-arch, like they'll probably have some problems on like Docker when it just pulls the wrong one, and like Buildpacks don't work the way you expect them to or whatever. And so getting ahead of that, just conceptually, at least thinking about the problems that are going to happen, makes sense to me.
Cool.
We've only got 2 minutes, so I don't really think I have time to go over the 011 board here, but if there's anything anyone wants to call attention to.
I have a question. I would like to pick like an issue, and I was wondering what's the priority between all the.
Oh, sorry, what was the question?
What is, I mean, is there something more urgent, or should I just pick a random issue from this list?
I'd say I'm pro just picking off the list what you feel interested in working on or feel like you have context on.
Okay. Cool.
I'll just say in the 1 minute we have left, I don't want to prolong it unnecessarily, but I put that action item on basically what's in the milestone right now is everything that like I think would be necessary to cover the 06 APIs, but and like one chore that we said was important, but like, you know, we can throw in other issues. And so I'm just sort of inviting that conversation, which we can have whenever, like, please come forward with your, you know, like the issues that should be tagged as well.
Makes sense. Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna treat like stack packs, Emily. So maybe sometime offline, maybe next week or something. If you want to talk about if it's not going to be listed in the 011 release, or if it is, like what's it going to be tagged like when we start on that? I don't know if Joe's already
I
started.
think
on
stack
it
packs is actually going to be the 07 APIs, so it'd probably be 012 release.
Okay. I wasn't sure how that was going to cross over with the like feature flagging in or whatever it is, the, you know, being able to like run beta features or whatever it is. I forget how all that worked out.
I was sort of naively assuming you would just do it for 012, but I'm open to counter proposals. I also think the sort of pre-work that Joe's been doing that I need to like read through, that sort of just provides the mix-ins at the right phase, which is a requirement that stack packs are going to need, but it could be done totally separately. And in fact would allow us to validate mix-ins in sensible ways that we don't right now. We could try to get that piece into the 06 API, because in some ways we'd be making progress on stack packs, but it's could be treated as an entirely independent thing.
Okay.
That was one
Maybe I'll
thought I
reach out
had.
to Joe and see what he's working
Yeah.
on. I actually don't know what I haven't talked to him in a little bit. So I'll check and see what he's doing. All right. Well, I left that stuff on the implementation future topic because we didn't get to the rest of the links there. So guess I'll catch y'all later.
Thanks, everyone.